So, welcome to the Instaglass podcast. Today, I have with me a very special guest by person of Stanley Chukwuemeke. Stanley is a cloud architect who has a very long career in tech. He's worked as a database administrator. He's worked in different capacity. It is more of your um, tech expert who has seen it or done it or work at different kinds of establishment. And right now is at the top with AWS. And today's chat is more about trying to help people who are trying to get into cloud and see how they can position themselves for excellence, whether you're coming from a non-tech background or you are in tech but not in cloud. So thank you once more for coming on. You're welcome to today's podcast, Stanley.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. Thanks for having me here.
Awesome, awesome. So I think we just go to the business and you tell us, what it was like for you when you got started in tech. Did you ever think at any point in time you'll be a cloud person? Because I know when you started it was like probably there was nothing like Azure back then or GCP. Probably there was AWS, but there was like cloud was still in its infancy, if it even existed at all back then. So can you just give like an intro into what tech was like when you got into tech?
Yeah, don't make it feel like I'm a dinosaur or something.
So you are experienced. Yeah.
No, actually, um, uh, I started my first employment, in tech when I left school. That was in September 2009. So it's not really tech has really blown out, especially in Nigeria. So
Yeah.
it's been there, but the cloud was still something people don't really. It wasn't really there like that,
Yeah.
in Nigeria, if I can use that context,
Yeah.
people, it wasn't everything was on-prem. So I started out my career not in the cloud, of course in on-prem as a database administrator. Then what's I was interested there was being an Oracle DBA, right? So that was where I
Okay.
started from, doing it on-prem, install, just set up your server, put Oracle in it, and people connect and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that was what was happening. Not until later in my career that I've moved down to that was in 2016. I got the exposure to the cloud in 2016 actually.
Okay.
So you can see from 2009 when I started
Yeah.
my
7
career,
years.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2016. That was my
Mm.
first exposure to the cloud, and that was because of the job I got then,
Okay.
right? So I got a job. And when I was going to then AWS as is becoming a thing, but
Yeah.
not
Not really
really,
the thing that it is right
not
now. Yeah.
exactly. So and because then I was working for uh a technology firm that we were managing the big enterprise in like the banks and
Okay.
the telcos. The banks and the
Yeah.
telcos, they are very more reluctant to even go into the cloud because
Oh, interesting.
they tell you about data because one, they have large amount of data. Two,
Mm.
they care more about data, where their data reside in, like,
Okay.
because the cloud then have their region. I think then
Yeah.
the only region we didn't have any region in Africa, talking of
Oh, wow.
AWS then, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The only region closest to Africa was in Ireland,
Oh,
Dublin.
yeah.
So most of the banks now, we talking about AWS, we have a region in South
Yeah.
Africa now, right?
Africa.
So
Yeah.
most, like the banks and the telco, they don't want their data to leave. I think it was
Mm.
it's a policy. Data must reside locally and that kind of stuff. So it
Okay.
deprive a lot of those kind of enterprise. So it was 2016. It was 2016. I got a job in an e-commerce firm, and they told me, they use cloud platform. I was like, what is this?
Okay.
So I've not
What
been
is
into the
this
cloud
sorcery?
before. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was when. So before I resumed that job, I started, playing around. I started playing around the cloud, and luckily, because then the cloud, my first exposure was on the AWS cloud because that was what they
Okay.
told me they were using because I got an insider info that this is what they use here. I was coming
Yeah.
from an Oracle background and they were like, okay, we don't use any on-prem here. Everything was, in the cloud. I was like, okay, so I got an AWS account. Then you have this 1 year free account that you can use from AWS. So I registered for the free account for one
Yeah.
year and
Yeah.
I started playing with it and just going around the platform, going around, create database,
Okay.
track, do all sort of stuff. Yeah, so that was my first exposure. Though when I got into the job properly,
Yeah.
it became my day-to-day job, and that was where my cloud. So I didn't start my career in the cloud.
From the cloud.
I
Yeah.
went into the cloud 7 years after I even started working. Before I moved into the
Wow.
cloud.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So I think that will give us like a kind of roadmap to use for today's talk because I'd had it in mind to maybe start from the non-tech side, non-tech people getting into cloud. But I think we can just use your experience to mirror what it's like to get into cloud, you know. So let's look at it from those who are in tech. Let's say you are a DBA, let's say you are a developer, let's even say you're a machine learning person and you want to get into cloud, you know, can you tell us what that journey looks like or, how you would advise the person to look at his or her cloud journey? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one because looking at the way I started, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I have been a DBA, you know.
Okay.
Now, whatever field that you are in the tech
Yeah.
experience, you can mirror that in the cloud. The first thing
That's
is that you, from a tech background, you need to get the fundamentals. I tell people probably who are coming into my field in the cloud, you don't
okay.
really have to know how the cloud works before you get into
Mm-hmm.
the cloud. If you're coming in like a database person like myself,
Yeah.
understand what database is first.
Okay.
You understand, pick an engine that you're familiar with, understand the fundamentals of the engine, know
Okay.
how to do it on your local computer, understand
Wow.
it
Okay.
wherever on, yeah. So get the fundamentals of that specific niche or engine or part of tech that you've chosen to go into, being networking, being
Mm-hmm.
developing, being DevOps, being, just choose it, understand the
Yeah.
fundamentals, you know, not the product. The product, like, understand the difference between you knowing how the tools work, right?
Okay.
Not knowing how the solution itself works. So if you understand it,
Mm,
you can always apply any cloud
yeah.
platform you want. You
Yeah.
can easily go into any cloud platform if you understand how and if you're working, for example, I'm familiar with a GCP as well. I'm familiar with
Okay.
AWS as well. If you put me in
Okay.
an Azure environment, I'll find my way around, right?
Awesome.
Based on
Yeah.
the knowledge. It's like you driving a car, right? If you can drive this particular car, if you put you in another car, you should be able to drive it. Just maybe where you
Yes.
have the click button here, probably they have it at here. Maybe Azure
Mm-hmm.
will put theirs there, but the whole
Exactly.
fundamental
It's the
is all
same
the same.
function. Yeah.
The same function they all do. So that was what I did. So from my perspective, I understand how database work. And when I got the job with AWS, then I
Yeah.
went in. If even before I got the AWS job, when I was working for the e-commerce that introduced me to the cloud, we were using
Okay.
GCP and AWS, and I was able to work on both of them. I didn't go to learn any cloud somewhere, right? I was just,
Mm-hmm.
on the job, read on the job, videos, YouTube. Creating database is a fundamental thing. Taking that for example, if you're into
Okay.
DevOps as well, doing your DevOps or doing networking, the fundamentals. You understand it, and you
Yes.
can apply the cloud technology into it. You can go and apply whatever platform. Then just to get yourself familiar with the platform uh, lingos, probably you can just take maybe one of the certifications just to
Mm-hmm.
get yourself around the cloud terminologies. For example, if you're talking about AWS, probably you want to know what an EC2 is, you want to know what an RDS is, you want to know
Yeah.
what cloud formation is, you want to know
Yeah.
what you know
Functions.
VPC
Yeah.
is, and all just get yourself around the
Yeah.
lingos and how to But the most important thing is just understanding the fundamentals. Pick
That's
a cloud platform you want to leverage that on, and understand the lingos. How do you understand the lingos? Just probably take a refresher course, one of these certifications. It takes you
okay.
through how the whole cloud lingos work, and you're good to go.
Awesome, awesome. So I think
Mhm.
for those in tech, it feels more like they already have a background that gives them a soft landing, but
Mm,
what they need to do is to as in understand the underlying technology of cloud, and
mm.
from what you've explained, it's more like things like networking. Then, there was talk about, I think, how things like storage on the cloud works. So from your experience what were some skills you transferred from your experience as a DBA into cloud? Were there any skills that really made it easy for you to have like a soft landing when you were making your transition?
Yeah. So when I got into the cloud environment then with the company I worked for back in Nigeria then,
Okay.
not even AWS now, the company I work for then, we are all
Yeah.
fully cloud. I think it's Conga. I worked with Conga then. They were
Awesome.
fully on cloud. They were, not fully, but they were like maybe 90% on cloud then.
Yeah.
So uh because I understand how database engine work, I could easily just go in and probably, because it's the same thing. You click it. The difference is that on your laptop you're doing running the command. The
Yeah.
databases there, you are is a managed service. You are clicking a button and it's creating, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
saves you
Mm-hmm.
more time. So you just see how it creates. You connect to it. Once you connect to it, you do normal thing that you do. So
Okay.
like I go back again to you understanding the fundamentals of your field in tech. If you're a DevOps person, for example, you understand how infrastructure as code works, right? With things like Terraform and things like CloudFormation and those kind of stuff. You understand how those things work. You can easily transfer them to the cloud. You know the fundamentals of how automation works, how to
Yeah.
automate things, how to write Python, and how to do these things. So the fundamentals is the key. If you understand the fundamentals, you can you can grasp the cloud technology easily because you already know how the
Mm.
fundamentals. So you are no longer so you're not tied to specific platform, right? If you put me, for example, on another platform that's not AWS, I will be able to find my way around and do things I can do
Yeah.
because I understand the fundamentals of how databases work, and it's all the same thing across, right? So what the
Mm.
cloud platform they do, they pick an engine and they put it in the cloud as a managed service, or they run. So whatever aspect of tech that you sit into, if you sorry, whatever aspect of tech that you are currently as,
Yeah.
and you want to migrate into the cloud, it's just if you understand the fundamentals, just take it down to how that cloud platform probably take, if you can, or if you can't, you can go to YouTube and do some other readings on how whatever field
Yeah.
you are, how do you do this in the cloud? You see
Okay.
it. So what that one is just teaching you is how the cloud can implement what you've already known, how you can implement what you've already known in the cloud. So from there,
Yeah.
you can learn things like, for me personally, what did I transfer to the cloud? My database knowledge was in the cloud, So when I came into the cloud, I could spin up an EC2, for example, and
Yeah.
install my database on it like I'm installing on my computer. But this time it's somewhere else, not on my computer.
Yeah.
I could deploy RDS services, you know, just like I would do it on my because I understand the fundamentals. And then
That's
I have to learn how the whole cloud ecosystem,
okay.
come together. Then how do you do that? I think I took a lot of certification that first year. I took the associate solution architect associate because I really like that certification in AWS because it covers the whole umbrella of the cloud,
Yeah.
right? So you can learn how the whole services in the cloud comes together. Then from there you can pick a niche.
Yeah.
If you're already in tech, it's easier for you to even navigate to the cloud because you already
Yeah.
have that fundamental knowledge of your field in tech, and it
Yeah.
just easily what you need to do is just to learn, probably take a course, a boot camp, or a certification that
Yeah.
shows you how your whatever you're doing, how you can do it in the cloud. The fundamentals is
Okay.
the same thing. It's just for you to understand the cloud platform that you've chosen
Yeah.
to do, and it makes it even more easier.
Awesome. So when you get the foundation, because obviously as somebody who has been in tech, get the foundation, then how do you become strong? Like from your own experience, what do you think has gotten you to where you are right now? Because obviously you're not a newbie, you're not even intermediate like you are up there. So somebody who's really looking to, okay, I really want to know this, like I have foundational knowledge, but I want to get stronger, I want to be better. What would be your advice at that stage of the journey?
Yeah, that's good. They say you can't trade experience for anything, right? It's
Yeah,
all experience. I can tell you when I was working in that tech company, I already
yeah,
have 7 years. I already have seven. I already had 7 years experience before I moved to the cloud, right?
yeah,
When I got into the cloud, then I remember that period we were supposed to do Yakata, right? That the Conga
okay.
usually do this their Yakata, like a Black Friday stuff.
Yeah, discount sales, another.
This can says, and
Yeah,
I was still shaking like a newbie because obviously I was new. I wasn't new in tech, but I was new in that cloud segment at that time, and
yeah,
they want to do this massive scale, and everybody was depending on me to do some magic in the cloud. Probably they
yeah,
want to scale out the database at that period, and I'm not very, but after that experience, I gained a lot, right? Because so
okay.
now for you to really, it's all about you doing it. Some people just go and have a certification, and that's it all. No even hands on.
No,
So
no
yeah,
experience.
so no experience. So it all boils down to you're there, you keep getting your hands dirty. You keep the beauty about the cloud is that it gives you that platform to experiment. But while you're
Mhm.
experimenting, also you don't have to incur unnecessary cost. That's one thing you
Yeah,
need to, yeah,
yeah,
because with the cloud you can easily incur cost, so you have to put that in mind. But you keep on experimenting. That is just try to experiment with some things. Read them up, experiment, destroy them. Read them up, experiment, destroy them. Read them up, experiment, destroy them. So with
hmm.
that period, that because the difference between the cloud and an on-prem environment is that, for example, if you want to experiment, if you have an idea, you want to experiment on the idea, you have to go buy a server, buy storage, and buy all those things. With the cloud, you have the luxury of just using these things, right? So we
Yeah,
can easily just spin up an instance and do something. But it also comes with its own downside that if you're not careful, you might spin up things and don't terminate them and incur B. So it's all about getting your hands. So for me, that period I was just trying to do things myself, trying to replicate database from one server to another, do
yeah,
things, spin up EC2, but spin them up, clean them out, spin them up, clean them up, spin them up. That is what. And if you find yourself in an environment, in a job,
yeah,
it even makes you more better because by then you start, it becomes your day-to-day job, and you develop. It makes you even
yeah,
more,
better.
more stronger.
So I have a fun question because it's not really very, very serious, but it's kind of serious in the sense that did you have any experience? You had any experience where either you incurred costs or somebody else incurred costs that was like, mind blowing. Now, how was it resolved? Like, if you can't go into details, but just a hint of how that experience was like.
Yeah, it was in yeah, I remember personally
Okay.
one of the things we did in my previous place when I was in Nigeria, my first cloud company, was that because a lot of the people there were new to the cloud, so they were allowed to experiment, and that was how they became good at what they were doing, and that's
Mm,
one of the advantages of the cloud, that gives you that elasticity. You can
yeah.
experiment things, an
Elastic
idea comes
compute.
to you. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can easily do whatever you need to do without any control. Because of that, a lot of people spin up instances, deploy projects, and just left it. And most of the cloud platform is pay as you go, pay as you use. So you can just leave an instance running and you're incurring costs. And because you've achieved your aim, you just left it
Yeah.
there. You didn't know what you're happy, everything is good, but you left. But that stuff is still incurring cost for you
Wow.
on an hourly basis, right? So that's why we one of the things most people try to put in their cloud platform now is they put a cron that goes into an account and look for instances, and and probably push out, do like an audit for the whole environment, and see systems that are down, and tell you, okay, this is the cost this account is curing. You can
Okay.
go there and see if you need to terminate. So there was a lot of cost. One of the things I was asked to do was to bring down some of the costs. So I have to find out that people who have left before me, they've had some instances they've deployed, high cost instances that are just
Oh,
sitting
wow.
down there and not, and for years, those kind of things. So you don't want to get into that trap. So we have to go there and start deleting, and deleting. And that was because people don't understand what they call cloud economists. And there's something called
Mm.
cloud economist. Even though the cloud is there for you, it's elastic,
Yeah.
you need to understand the cloud economy is how cost is, and that's what trap you get into if you're new in the cloud. You just
Okay.
like you go to a buffet and the food is just there for you
Everything is just for
to
you.
eat for you.
Yeah.
So you can, if you're not careful, you can overeat, and just so cloud economy is very, very
Key.
necessary
Oh, wow.
for if you're going into that cloud journey to allow you to save cost in the long run.
Interesting. And it's one of the things we don't really hear much about, cloud economics. I think there's this something I stumbled on recently, FinOps, and some other concepts. But like, what are the fundamental concepts you would advise anybody? Let's use AWS as an instance, like what are some core principles everyone should know as we build our careers in the cloud? What are some core principles you need to have in mind that would make your understanding of the cloud and your practice of the cloud better?
Yeah, I think the first thing you want to know is you being passionate about what you want to do, right?
Mm,
You have a field in the cloud. You have you have a tech field. You understand the fundamentals of your field, right?
okay.
Then pick a cloud, AWS, for example. If you are into, maybe if you want to become a cloud architect, for example, right? Or a DevOps engineer, right? So,
Yeah,
or a solutions architect, for example. First of all, you need to understand the fundamentals of how this thing works. Then, after understanding it, I will always advise you first, after that, if you're coming from a tech background, to even understand, take, um, honest, pick a certification, which is um, the associate level. Why I always
okay.
recommend the solutions architect associate, because it gives you an overview of all the clouds, lingos, terminologies, and the services, and how they all relate. From there,
Yeah,
you have a broad mindset. Then you can, from there you can pitch into your niche and say, if go to the rest, that whatever field that you want to go to, because you've already understood everything. And also, nothing stops you from experimenting. That's where it comes in, because
yeah,
you now have to start playing with it. You play with it, you get your hands dirty, you do things. You have free AWS, for example, have free tier instances, right? You sign up for the free tier account. Those free tier instances allows you to do something for free for 1 year, I think. Then,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they restrict you to some of the instances that you can use. So you use those ones. That was what I used back then. Just 1 year, just playing. After 1 year, I know other cloud provider also do the same thing, but in a different way, right? Maybe they give you credit
Mm,
for some things, and you do that. So with that, you get your hands, dirty. You spin up, you destroy. You spin up, you destroy, and all those kind of things. And from there, you get yourself a job, or probably apply for internship, or apply
okay.
for um for a job, or if possible, you get a mentor as well. I know we spoke about mentorship the other time we
Yeah.
talked, so very, very necessary, and that how your cloud, journey begins.
Oh, so some of the people that signed up for the mentorship, most of them are not in tech. And I think for them, the challenge is more like, how do we start? So we've created a pathway for them to look into, okay, we can look at becoming a solutions architect, and find your passion, like you said, the things you like, but understand these core principles, because when you start taking those certification, they introduce you to the principles you need to know about how the cloud works. So the fundamentals like networking, you need to stumble on things like storage and compute. And
Mm.
these are principles that even people that work on-prem too need to understand, because it just how data flows and how data is stored. But I want to know, because by the time this goes live on YouTube and other platforms, people might stumble on it, maybe people coming from non-tech background. If you had a roadmap for somebody, let's say from day zero to like let's say, first 100 days trying to learn cloud, how would you draw out that roadmap if you were beginning from cloud? I mean, if you were beginning to enter the cloud, let's say, from a non-tech background, how would you position yourself? What would you want to learn within your first 100 days?
So if you're coming from the non tech background, it's more like you're coming from non-tech
Yeah,
into tech,
yeah,
right? Let's take out the cloud now, for example. It's like
okay,
you're coming from you want to transition to
tech,
to tech, correct? I think the first thing is that you define where your passion lies into. There are some
okay,
tech field that doesn't require you to code. There are some that requires you to code. So just what niche do you want to carve for yourself in tech, right? Do you want to become a solutions architect? Do you want to become a network engineer? Do you want to become a developer? Do you want to become a database, specialist? Do you want to become a
yeah,
DevOps engineer? So you think about this first, make your research, you know, get where you want to go into, right? From a non-tech perspective, then choose
okay,
which of them you want to go into. Once you've decided, okay, I want to do this, then the next thing is that how do I will say emphasize on you getting a tech mentor in that field, right, that you've chosen. Get somebody
yeah,
who's done it, who's been there, you know to give you some guidance and say, okay, this, speak that, do this, do that. Then you venture into that. Probably there are a lot of boot camps out there that probably, let's assume you want to become a solutions architect, for example, right? And
yes.
you don't know anything about tech, and you want to become a solutions
So as a
architect.
person, yeah,
So you move from non-tech. The first thing you want to do, okay, you've used as a solutions architect. First, you must have an analytical mind. You must first of all go and look for the attributes of a solutions architect,
architects, okay,
right? Yeah. So what kind of attribute do they possess? You must be able to listen. You must be able to analyze things. You must be able to, um, you have that customer facing experience as well. You're not going to be
yeah,
you'll be facing people. So you filter out those attributes that are required for this specific role.
yeah,
Then you pick out a mentor. So this is the mentor. This is what I want to do. Then pick, maybe you want to do a boot camp, or you want to pick a certification. Now, from AWS, for example, we have those paths. Okay, you pick
yeah,
one of those. And if you're coming from non-tech, I would advise you probably pick the foundational certifications. Those foundational one gives you, before you even go to solutions architect, those foundational one gives you, you know,
yeah,
a broad understanding of how the tech ecosystem works. Tell you what the storage what to say. So you need to understand the fundamentals of the stuff. So you get that going. Then from there, with the help of your mentor, probably you get some internship stuff to be doing, or some project that you can be doing just to get your hands dirty. And from there, you look for some entry roles,
awesome. So
and
there's
and
the issue
and
of,
and, and you build
yeah,
up.
So find entry role, and then from there you can work your way up. Um,
Yep.
we've mentioned one or two roles in cloud, like the solutions architect. What are some other lower level roles one can be looking at, let's say for non-techies, that want to get into the cloud?
I just use solutions architect as an example, right? There are a lot
Yeah.
of other roles. You can become a cloud architect, all right? A cloud architect basically, um, yeah, there's nothing really like a low level role, right? A
Oh,
role is a
okay.
role.
Okay.
You can
Yeah.
pick any role. Each of the
Yeah.
role you want to pick have different levels. For example, the reason why I use solutions architect because that's where I am, right? And the
Yeah.
solutions architect we have intern architect,
Oh,
right?
okay.
We have architect that are intern. So those are the low level roles. If you pick,
Okay.
for example, a cloud engineer role that has to do with like a DevOps, they have a low level role. So you have to start. You
Yeah.
pick that field in the cloud that you want to go to. Then you start from the bottom with the help
The
of your
entry level
mentor and
role.
your certifications, the entry
Yeah.
level role based on that role. So if you go to most of all these job sites, you will see if you pick, for example, cloud architects or developers or wherever, you can see low level roles, entry roles, internship roles if there are those coming from school, right?
That's true.
You
Yeah.
can pick those roles. Yeah, you're not going to come from a non-tech role or from
Yeah.
and just want to jump to you start from the bottom and
The
you
bottom,
work your
yeah. And
way
work your way up. Yeah.
through it. Yeah. And the most important thing is that, like I said, is that mentorship that you need to get. Look for somebody. Even personally for me,
Yeah.
even with the level I am, I still have a mentor.
Wow.
Somebody that I go to that mentors me. This is what I want to do. This is what I want. And it's a very crucial in your role in your journey, even in the cloud, not just in the cloud, in every aspect of your life, right?
Yeah.
So it guides you, moves you, and just like you go. So if you, for example, if you pick a cloud architect role, which is like more like DevOps, for example, you start learning things like maybe automation because you do automations, you do
Oh, yeah.
CI/CD pipeline, all those things.
Terraform and
You
code.
learn Terraform and the rest,
Yeah.
Terraform, cloud formation for
Yeah.
AWS, cloud specific. You learn all those things. So you learn all those things, and
Mm.
with the help of your mentor, you can probably get an internship role, or you can get you know an entry level role where you can put those
Awesome.
things you've learned into all practice. And like I said, you always want to have that account, free account, where you can
Okay.
do things on your own because you need to be able to, if possible, do things, put them out there, just get your hands,
Yeah.
put your things on a rep on a GitHub,
Yeah.
just put things that you've done, and from there you get a role and you build yourself, you work your way up.
Yeah. So finding a mentor in your, chosen cloud path is key. So let's just go a bit back into memory lane. Can you
Mm.
still recall some of your mentors as worked your way up in tech? What was it like? What can you recall from your experience with them? Maybe some of your mentors when you were in tech, and even now, what are the things you admire about them? And also, I think right now too, you are in a position of mentorship. What are the attributes you are working on to like exude for people you are mentoring?
Yeah, back then, when I was in Nigeria, right, I didn't officially, it wasn't like I have this mentor, like an official mentor,
Okay.
right? But I have
Okay.
someone I always look up to, right? I sit down with them, but I was lucky enough to be, to work in an environment with a lot of smart people that period.
Mm,
So we're there and we have this specific guy. Then we still keep in contact today, even though we both left the country. He was more senior, and
mm.
I think he was extremely good. So every time go up to him and say, okay, this is what we need to do. Watch him, learn, get materials from him, and that stuff. It's getting a mentor does not mean your mentor needs to spoon feed you, right?
At
You
all.
don't
Yeah.
have a mentor, and you say every time your mentor, you just you need to do. Your mentor is more like a road blocker. and somebody that removes the blocker
Yeah,
that unblocks your path, right?
yeah,
So you need to be able to do the work yourself, right? You need to be able to get your hands dirty. Then you come and say, okay, this is what, and it guides you, and you said, okay, this, I think this is, you can do it this way, you can do it that way, and you have to go back again and do whatever you need to do. So there should always be that, you know, constant communication. And if you hit a roadblock, you come to him and say, okay, and because he or she has been there, right? He or
yeah,
she has been there, has done it, has seen it, has made
yeah.
mistake, and can be able to, guide you. So some of the things you want to do is you being able to, you be a doer, you
Mm,
being able to be able to do these things, get your hands, dirty, and put in your time,
time. Mm,
and be intentional about what you want to do. Just be intentional. Be intentional
yeah.
about what you need to do. One thing most people don't, make use of, yeah, whatever you want to do, somebody has done it before, right?
That's okay.
Whatever you want
Yeah.
to do, someone has done it somewhere, except probably maybe the Gen AI that we're just in the new field now where
Yeah,
people are still discovering. All right. So
yeah.
whatever you want to do, someone has done it. So, and these things, a lot of these things are on YouTube. Just go to YouTube. It's so rich. You can get anything. Do it. And if you hit a roadblock, you can say, my mentor, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, I've done that, but this is what I want to achieve. How do I help? Then he comes in and said, okay, okay. Then, and also can guide you probably in project if it's available, internship stuffs, and that's the role, of a mentor. But it shouldn't be your day to day. You
Yeah.
have an error message. You have an error message. You send your
Yeah.
error message to them, something you can check
Uh,
online and Google out, and you know.
so there's a skill to building mentorship that is, mutually reinforcing and profitable. I think it's one of the things we have to build into our program because we want our mentors to not feel like somebody's, just choking them all the time, but instead giving them room to practice and really get fundamental skills and know what they are doing. Oh, that's awesome. So, you mentioned something about AI in passing. And I know AWS was one of the first companies to venture into AI, and even right now they are doing serious work in that field. But I'm looking at it more from, we don't all have to just go into AI because it's a trending thing. More like it has to be a value-driven conversation or value-driven movement for, us as maybe people who are in tech or looking to get into tech. But that said, what are your views on, the future of the cloud? What are some technologies that excite you when it comes to the cloud or even in tech generally?
Yeah, for me, I think the cloud, even though, but I'm just very excited to be around this period of the whole journey. If you think back, probably when I started my career, it wasn't like this. And in my field as a whole, I'm very excited the way the cloud has taken technology to the next level, right? So people now you can go global. If you have a business idea with the
Yeah,
cloud, you can go global in a minute, right? Now you can have, if for example, you have businesses in Nigeria, you have your customers in the US or in Europe or in Asia, for example, you're having latency issue, you can even spin up a region, spin up your instance in any of this region closer to your customers, and that's one thing the cloud is able to do, right?
awesome.
Gen AI has that's a huge impact, and everybody is still coming, to grab the full
Yeah,
potential of it, and yeah, of it, and I'm excited about what the future holds about it because I only see it, improving more than, you know, what we've done now. For me, database specifically in my field I've been really impressed with what the cloud has done, especially the AWS cloud platform, right? I remember
awesome.
when I used to be a DB, when I used to be a DBA, a lot of things we do, heavy liftings that we do, our job then was basically managing infrastructures. That was what we're doing. A lot of a company
Mm,
can have 10 DBAs then, but all what were they all doing? Managing infrastructures. What I
Gotcha.
mean by that, they're either installing OS, patching OS, doing high
Wow.
availability, maintaining servers and all those things. And those things are not really, it's like you're
Mm.
just putting the light up for the house, that's what we're
Wow.
doing, and you're working shift, you're working night. And but now with the cloud, those things, those heavy lifting, the cloud platforms, AWS, for example, is taking care of those things for you. And now you are more, into strategic uh decision making. You're now being more strategic with your time. You're now being, doing things that really add more value to the 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 customer, the end customer, and not really spending your whole time managing infrastructure.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
that's
one
good
thing
things.
I'm impressed about. I'm impressed about and the cloud now. More, you have more data scientists now. You have more, data engineers now, and the DB field now is becoming a bit more, it's becoming more into managing data instead of infrastructure, right? Which the
Yeah,
cloud company has taken. So that field, I'm really excited about it. And
awesome.
one thing again I'm excited about is the way we've done with some of our clouds, uh, services. For example, for me, specifically the way we've been able to scale our database in terms of the serverless databases that we have in the AWS
Yeah,
cloud. That for me excites me as well as someone from that background, that you can anticipate formally you want to set up a database. You either you don't know what size of customers you're going to have, so you can say,
yeah,
okay, I
scale.
have this size of database.
Yeah,
Now it can scale, as you can set an upper and lower limit, and automatically scale by itself instead of you going up and down to increase server and decrease
yeah,
server. So these are this kind of technology the cloud has brought up, that for me, that's really really exciting. And this is now, and with AI now, more, you know more
yeah.
and more of this excitement. I'm looking at what 5 years time, what we're going to be having in the cloud, and what the
Probably
future is
flying
going to look
cars.
like.
Yeah.
Probably,
So, but
probably, probably.
yeah. One thing I maintain is that even if we're going to make any progress in the AI field, it is still the cloud that is the underlying technology that makes it happen. Because, like, from my experience, I've always been in the data field for some time. Coming from school, I've always been doing data analytics and all that. And one jump I saw was when we could do analytics and machine learning on the cloud. That is what really gave rise to us having programs like ChatGPT, because the hosting, for instance, had to be incurred by Microsoft, and that was where they were burning the bulk of their money. Even when they had the models out, they really had to consider scale, reliability, compute and things like that. So, you know, I feel like on my own part, the excitement for me too is more like I'm going to see very cool products in the AI space, but it's going to be powered by the cloud. And it's one of the reasons why I felt we need to have this conversation so that, whoever is looking at, okay, how do I become relevant? Is something they want to think about. Like maybe I could start from the cloud, and maybe because for me, that is what I'm really, really looking at the moment, to be honest. More like a value-driven conversation for me. Like if I major in the cloud, even as a data engineer, it makes me a bit more of an asset to wherever I work, because they know that, I'll think about it in terms of reliability. I want the services to, scale without too much cost, in a way that is
Yeah.
efficient. Yeah, so it's a an ongoing conversation really, and I'm really glad we've touched on so many points. But I want to get your final thought on, how would you advise for preparing for success in the cloud? What are some takeaways you want anybody who watches this or listens to it via podcast, to really bear in mind as they build a career in the cloud?
I think first of all is that the cloud is not up there, right?
Okay,
The
yeah,
cloud is
good,
not is
yeah,
The cloud is not up there. The cloud is just, like they say, it's just a computer somewhere that you need to
Yeah,
connect with an API, from your software. So you treat it just like that, right? You treat it just like that. If you're
yeah,
coming from if you're coming from if you're a tech person coming from a non-cloud background, but you're already in tech, good. You understand the fundamentals, right? Of your
yeah,
field. You understand the fundamentals. You move it. I've seen a lot of people worked with me, right? Who came in, we worked together, and we're colleagues. I've seen maybe somewhere else as well, where they are not really, they don't have a cloud skill, but they know the technology,
yeah.
and they came in. So you're going to be assessed on the technology. You're coming. The cloud, you can learn the cloud fundamentals within. If you understand the technology, you can know. Sometimes I call it like the cloud is more like a lipstick that you put on your lips, right? So you understand how the
Yeah.
fundamentals work of your just learn how the cloud works on it, and that is the smallest part of it, right? So
Mm.
once you get that fundamentals going in your choosing field, then understand how the cloud works. Pick one of those certifications you feel like that you want to do that relate to your field. Just do it. It teaches you how you can navigate yourself around the cloud environment the cloud platform you've chosen. How you can play around it, and that's it. And as you continue working in that space, that's when you understand. When I got my job, the first job in the cloud, that's the first job I got in the cloud, and I was already
Oh wow.
over, how many years experience.
Oh
And I got
wow.
there, and I struggled at first, play around, and because I understood how the technology works.
It
So it's all
works.
about
Yeah.
understanding the technology. Yeah, understand this technology. The cloud platform is like a tool.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
if I know how to ride a car, if I know how to drive a car, understand the fundamentals of how car has been driven. If you give me a
Yeah,
Toyota, you give me a Mercedes or anything, I should be able to drive it because I should know this is where the gear is, this is where this
exactly.
that, that kind of stuff. So once you get that coming from the cloud, coming from a tech background, that is key for you. Understand the fundamental, pick a cloud platform, work on it, and you don't really need to apply for it low sorry entry level jobs,
That's a level
because
job.
if
Yeah.
you're experienced in a specific field, you don't need to because you're already experienced in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can move. But if you're coming from a non-tech background, that's when it becomes different. All right, that's where you need to, first of all, go and um choose a path that you want
Yeah.
to in the cloud that you want to go for. You choose it. I'll advise you do the fundamentals, the
Yeah.
cloud practitioner exam, from
Yeah.
AWS. If you've chosen the AWS platform, you do that, and that guides you on some of the fundamentals of the cloud, some of the acronyms, some of the lingos they use in the cloud. You
Oh
understand
yeah,
what is the
language.
cloud? Yeah.
Mm.
It opens your mind about all the services, their name, their lingos, how they connect, that kind of thing. You understand it, then you pick the field you want to go into, and you start from that field. You get a mentor, right? The mentor guides you, gives you project in that field, and guides you, and from there you don't underestimate the essence of uh experience in this, in terms of you
Experience.
trying to
Yeah.
get your hands dirty on it.
That's it.
That's where, if the cloud platform you've chosen to learn have a free account for you, set up a free account and start playing with the services. If you want to become a solutions architect, for example, there are a lot of
Yeah.
projects out there in internet where you can learn some projects relating to a solutions architect in a project. Like I said, okay, we want you to build this project for us. You have to architect this. You
Yeah.
play with all those things with the free account. Play with them. After playing with them, you destroy whatever you've set up. And so that gives you that
Mm.
hands-on experience.
Experience.
Then
Yeah.
from that hands-on experience, you look for some of the entry roles in the field you've chosen, and from there you find your way up the ladder.
Awesome. Awesome. So much insights from your responses. Before we go, we have I don't know if we have any questions from participants. I know like we don't have too many on call now, but we'll be getting lots of questions once it goes live on other platforms. But before we round up, if I have any question from Martinez, based on today's call, or we just round up and call it a day. Okay, I think that will just be the end of today's call. It's been awesome having you. I really do look forward to the mentorship program we're setting up for people looking to get into cloud. As we progress, we'll be sharing updates on our platforms on Twitter, YouTube, and of course our website as it comes live. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. It's been awesome. That will be all from me and from Mr. Gloves. Okay, bye.
Bye bye. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Yeah, bye.